All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and another episode in our series of Manifest Your Destiny from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, The Nine Spiritual Principles for Manifesting, the book subtitled The Nine Spiritual Principles for Getting Everything You Want. And we find ourselves more than halfway through the second principle of becoming a spiritual manifester, which is learning to trust in yourself. And by doing this, or how to do this, trusting in yourself is trusting in the wisdom that created you, and that created us, and that created everything that we see and experience. Important to keep in mind that the source and the cause for everything that we see, hear, and experience in the physical realm is non-physical. It is an energy. It is a source. It is a life force, a power, an organizing intelligence, you could call it. But this force, this God force, that is the underlying source for everything that is manifest or created in physical reality, is what we are coming to know ourselves as the first principle for manifesting your destiny. And the principles of spiritual manifesting was becoming aware of your highest self and our connection to that source. And so we find ourselves today trusting yourself as trusting the wisdom that created you. Since it is everywhere, this force, God, it is not only within you, it is within everything that you perceive to be missing from your life as well. And so that means that those two things are connected. They are not separate. And the problem with this, understanding this philosophy, is convincing our egos of the oneness when our egos convince us of the separateness of everything. But since it is everywhere, it is not only within you, it is you. The meaning of this is that God is not to be found as so much as discovered within yourself. It's not to be found somewhere out here. Like if we go looking for it on a journey, even if we do find it on that journey, we will not find it outside of ourselves. We will always come to find it within ourselves, within yourself. The statement, quote, you and the Father are one, is more than just an ecclesiastical admonition. This is the statement of the reality of our lives. And with practice, most importantly, with practice, we can come to know this as a truth for ourselves. And we can learn to know this reality. And we can begin to live from this perspective. And this will begin to change the experiences that we have based on a new perspective. It's funny how if you go through life with a certain perspective, you will see the things as a reflection of that kind of perspective. So, an example is somebody is very pessimistic and doesn't expect good things out of anything all the time. They will find that and they will see it and they will experience it, to where the opposite, if somebody is very optimistic and they are looking for the good in everything, they will strangely, side by side next to the other person, see and experience that. It could be the very same reality for both people externally, but internally, a very different experience. That could go into the argument of different realities for individuals, but that's a different subject. And so, once again, with practice, we can learn to know this reality and we can learn to see the aura around all living things. And we can learn to assist others by projecting our energy and giving them strength and sustenance. Actually, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, and I'm reading from the book, paraphrasing with my own thoughts here before we get to the section entitled Prayer and Trust, and a new understanding on prayer other than the idea of God being some kind of giant vending machine when we put in our tokens and hopefully we get out what we want from it. This is not the way to think of this. This divine power of using our minds in the communication with that which we are a part of, but is much grander than any one of us individually, like we are a drop of the ocean. The ocean has the power. The drops are a part of the ocean, nevertheless. Now, it may be that the most effective way to trust your reality is through the power of prayer, the power of mental communication with this force that is a part of us, not separate. A mental communication with God. Prayer and trust offer us seemingly magical methods for creating and manifesting a divine desire. But first, you may have to shift old preconceptions concerning prayer and discover a whole new inner vision about this idea of praying and prayer. And this is what we are about to discuss just now. Thank you for joining me once again, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining us and you haven't been in this series before, we're reading Manifest Your Destiny, the 9 Spiritual Principles for Manifesting. Once again, the first one was coming to know your highest self. The second one we're in now is learning to trust yourself, and trusting yourself is trusting in the wisdom that created you. Now, on the chapter of prayer and trust, and we are reading this for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that through an increased awareness we can increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. Let us begin. Prayer and trust. Dr. Wayne Dyer begins by saying, quote, "In the matter of prayer, it seems that we often view God as a gigantic vending machine in the sky who will grant us our wishes when we put it in the proper tokens in the form of prayers." See, I love this. It's a good analogy because we don't really sit back and think about what it is that we're doing when we are doing this kind of praying to the separate idea of God and offer, as this idea of that God is some kind of gigantic vending machine in the sky who will grant us our wishes when we put in the proper tokens in the form of prayers or good deeds or the whole misunderstanding of doing good works for selfish reasons. So, we expect in this thought, of this view of God, we expect to insert prayers and then pull on the knob and hope that God will dispense the goodies. And the God vending machine becomes the object of our. Hello, kitten. How are you? You saying hi? You gonna join the video? She likes to join the video from time to time. And that's just fine, ladies and gentlemen. Because I learned in the past that you can really let small things make you upset and angry for not very great reason. And so little things like this used to make me go, dang it, I've ruined the video. And it's all right. Remind yourself, no matter what it is, it's all right. And then try to go from there. And that's what we're doing now. The basic premise here, though, is that God is outside of us. Once again, something separate, what our ego tells us. But we know the truth is that it's all one. And therefore, with this premise that God is outside of us, and we tell the vending machine how good it is and how much we worship it and expect it to be good to us in return. Well, the God vending machine becomes the object of our veneration. Once again, the basic premise here is that God is outside of us, and therefore what we need and want, here's the major problem, is also outside of us. And as long as we go through our days or, our journey and adventure here in life, which is a grand adventure, but if we go through this grand adventure believing that all of the things that we need and want, especially happiness, contentment, fulfillment, are outside of us, then we're always going to be going somewhere to find it. Just like earlier, you will not find God wherever you go, because where it is found, wherever you go, will be within you. So that goes to the same sentiment of wherever you go, there you will be. What does that mean? Back to earlier, if you have the pessimistic, negative view of everything, wherever you go, that will be there. You will be that there. If you are a positive person and you have optimism about everything, which is rare, we're all fluctuant on these scales, but you know, in the majority, wherever you go, you, what you have inside will be there. And so it doesn't, most people say, oh, if I finally move to this place, then I'm going to be happy. But if you're a miserable, unhappy person, it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, this doesn't mean that going somewhere to give yourself a chance to change where you are on the inside. Now that's different. But that still won't matter where you are because it will be an internal process. I will admit, though, sometimes there are places of serene quietness and beauty that help this inter process. So don't be confused about that. Now, with this being said, this view of God as a giant vending machine and this idea of prayer, well, this form of prayer, or this idea and this premise that God is outside of us and the things that we want are also out there, and we're hoping they'll just. Are you scratching yourself? Are you scratching? And so we tell the vending machine how good it is, how much and this, you can see how this leads to a cycle of a problem to where we're always coming back, wanting more. Okay, now I need this, and I have to go to something that's outside of me, and I can never do it myself. Well, if we believe that we are separate from God, then the vending machine approach to prayer reinforces and deepens that belief. Like I said, it becomes a cycle, and we get trapped in this process. And so, this form of prayer to something separate and outside of us as a vending machine is like practicing the absence of God rather than the presence of God. Secret of the universe. You get good at what you practice. Another secret of the universe. What you think about expands and gets bigger. So it's kind of the same principle. What you work on will grow. What you practice, you get better at, and you can do it accidentally without even thinking about it. And if those are negative thought patterns and behaviors, then we can get really good at negative thought patterns and behaviors the more that we practice them. And so this view of God as something separate from us, outside of ourselves, that we have to send our prayer tokens and hope we get something back, is practicing a state of feeling the absence or the separateness of God rather, and we'll get good at that if we practice it, rather than practicing this oneness, this presence, not the acceptance of God being out there, the presence of God with us here now, this force, if you don't want to call it God, that's fine. Life force, universal animating intelligence, the Tao, grand organized design, God, whatever you want to call it. You call it Luis, it doesn't matter because it is all names. So any name is not the name. So if we can come to know that we are a part of this, and we can begin to practice the presence of this animating force that is within everything. I mean, I like to look at things that and imagine the energetic nature of it at the very smallest, quantum levels, where it's just this vibration of energy fields, electromagnetic happenings, and try to think of that as this force that is pervading and flowing through all things at all times. But I prefer to promote, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, the idea of prayer in its essence as a communication with God. Praying at the spiritual level then becomes communing with and knowing. You could kind of call it sitting with the force or God. But communing with and knowing that God is as close to us as our breath is. You breathe in and you take, and then you must breathe out. You cannot continue to take. It is impossible. You can only take in so much, and then you must give back in exact proportion. I mean, we can adjust that with breath work, but it is a reciprocity, a give and a take, and it is there with you always. Remind yourself of your connection to God through your breath. And so, with that, what we seek in prayer, in this mental communication with God, and remember, there are three great planes of reality: the physical plane, which is what we experience here. Above that is the mental plane, and then the spiritual plane. And all reality based to ancient philosophies say that this all takes place within the mind of God. And so, us using our minds, small versions of the mind of God, finite mind as compared to infinite divine mind, we can make this connection. And as above, so below, so to speak, an experience of coexisting with God. Because becoming a manifester is really nothing more than simply adjusting or aligning yourself, or a co-creation, as some call it, with God, an alignment. And so, no separation, no absence of God within. Simply the presence of this force within ourselves and everything. So once again, Dr. Wayne Dyer says here, quote, and I'll read it word for word, I prefer to promote the idea of prayer in its essence as a communication with God. Praying at the spiritual level then becomes communing with and knowing that God is as close as our breath. What we seek in prayer is the experience of coexisting with God. Prayer is our communication of readiness for the desires of this sacred energy to manifest through our human form. No separation, no absence of God within, simply the presence of this force within ourselves. Therefore, the true experience of God does not change or alter God, but it changes us. And this is the real aha moment when you begin to do this work and practice for yourself. And I'm telling you, if you are not ready, if you are not, if you don't have a burning desire backed by a definite purpose of a willingness to want to experience this for yourself in your life, you won't believe it. You'll think it's stupid. You'll think it's something that people just like to talk about in motivational speeches, and it's impossible. But when you do get there and you are ready and you have a burning desire backed by a definite purpose of experiencing a better life for yourself, then you will begin to put in the work that is required to do this. It's most important to understand you can read and learn all the greatest wisdom of all all time. And it's never going to do you any good unless you put it into action. It should automatically work if you begin to practice, uh, take in, engage with the kinds of materials that can facilitate such changes within oneself through the law of autosuggestion. If you're wondering what autosuggestion is, that just means the type of stimulus that we put into our minds goes to our subconscious. And then after some time, our subconscious begins to turn that into our experience. And so, if we want to begin to experience this, once again, once we get that burning desire to really want to experience a better life, because there's a lot of people out there that are stressed out, struggling, and they just don't want to hear this. They're like, this is stupid. This isn't going to help me. And it makes me very sad. And I hope one day those that believe that can find and see that putting in a little work in the spiritual, philosophical, self-help direction can go a long way. And it isn't stupid, and it does work. But it takes work. And so you have to be willing to put that work in. With that ramble aside, it's impossible for me to read one page and not do a 45-minute video. But this is why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. We are letting God, the Force, flow through my mind from what I'm reading onto the page in the video. And it's fun to see where we go, huh, Beans? Hi, little kitten. Now, remember, no separation, no absence of God. We are practicing the presence, the communion, sitting in oneness. And so, prayer is our communication of readiness for the desires of this sacred energy to manifest through our human form. So, the true experience of God does not change or alter God, but it changes us. It heals our sense of separation. And we can begin to feel and see this oneness for ourselves. And this healing, if we are not changed by this mental communication, this prayer, this union with God, then we have denied ourselves the opportunity to know the wisdom that created us. The search for happiness outside of ourselves rekindles an idea that we are not whole and relegates the previously mentioned view of prayer as God is some giant vending machine and we're separate and we're sending our tokens and hopefully getting something back. If this is the way we're thinking of this, we have denied ourselves the opportunity to know the wisdom that has created us. The search for happiness outside of ourselves rekindles this idea that we are not whole and regulates prayer to the status of a plea to some kind of judge, ruler, or boss / God. We are then asking for favors rather than seeking a manifestation of our invisible, inspired self. We're asking for favors rather than offering to add value to reality. Another secret of the universe: when you find a way, whatever your natural inclinations are and your inspirations are, to use those and add value to reality, that you will be met with a success unexpected in common results. So, quit searching for happiness and God and all of these things outside of ourselves. We need to begin to cultivate the garden within. Think about a garden. You got to plant seeds. They don't just turn into giant tomato plants immediately. You have to tend to it. These seeds that I'm talking about are the thoughts that we have, the beliefs that we have about the world and ourselves, and the thoughts that we constantly water, you could say, or let grow. Remember, what you think about expands. What you practice, you get good at. And so, what seeds you plant and how you cultivate them with water and soil and tending and sun and fertilization, all of these have maybe mental analogies or mental equivalents in a metaphorical sense of soil and water and sunshine and attending and a cultivating of the mental seeds that we plant and sow to create a new garden of happiness, of contentment, of self-confidence, of self-reliance. I mean, any one of these categories. It is the garden that we need to tend within ourselves. It's the measure of a life. It's a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In a moment of time. It's a great song, sorry. The Garden by Rush. It's a garden to nurture and protect. It's the measure of a life. But the search for happiness outside of ourselves will keep us trapped in the idea that we are not whole and that we have to seek something outside of ourselves. But remember that you are whole and complete in each moment and need not chase after anything in order to be full, in order to be whole and complete. So, prayer, this communication with God, that helps us to cultivate this idea of presence and oneness rather than separation from God. Prayer at the spiritual level, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, I am writing about, and not asking for something any more than the attempt to become a manifester is asking for something to show up in your life. What I call authentic prayer is inviting divine desire to express itself through us. It is a prayer for what it is that is for our highest purpose and for highest good. And for the greater benefit, once again, adding value to all of reality and mankind. Prayer at this level expresses this experience of oneness with this divine energy. Now, this may sound like a radical or even blasphemous notion to you, depending from what backgrounds and spiritual traditions you've come from. But this understanding before the dogma started is the true source of all spiritual traditions. And so, if you don't believe that, here are a few examples from Dr. Wayne Dyer to us today. Christianity will state, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Islam will state, those who know themselves know their God. Buddhism will tell us, look within, for you are the Buddha. Vedanta, a part of Hinduism, will tell us that Atman, individual consciousness, and Brahman, so us and God, Brahman being universal consciousness, are but one. Yoga, another part of Hinduism, says to us that God dwells within you as you. Confucianism will tell us heaven, earth, and human are of but one body. And the Upanishads, which are also part of Hinduism, stated to us by understanding the self, all this universe is known. So what this really comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is overcoming our conditioning in this area and really beginning to rewire our brains once again through this auto-suggestion, through influencing the subconscious mind with the kind of stimuli that we take in, creating new subconscious patterns and routines. But we must begin to overcome our conditioning in this area and all areas, really, that are negatively impacting our lives, limiting ourselves. But overcoming our conditioning in this area is crucially important because at first we may be able to accept this idea on an intellectual level, but that won't do it because we'll be unable to make it our authentic experience if we just know it intellectually. We must come to practice it and experience it for ourselves through conscious contact, not knowing about God, but knowing God. So, how can we get to this authentic experience? Well, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, I suggest you make prayer or this mental communication with that which you are connected to and is you. Just has the power of the ocean, as we are a drop in the ocean. So to connect to that power that we are a part of, it's not separate. So even saying to connect to it, rather just to realign so it flows, rather than being unaligned, so that we're still in the power, but it's just not flowing. There's a blockage of the flow. If we can align ourselves with harmony, universal, spiritual principles and all of these things, we know we've talked about this already. And we will be discussing all of this in here as well. This is what each one of these sections is about. These spiritual principles that we can live by to align ourselves with the flow and allow it to activate within us and become manifestors. So, Dr. Wayne Dyer once again suggests we make prayer our experience it by our we make this mental communication, this prayer, this communion, this oneness with God, our experience by using it to replace the random, continuous thoughts that we have all day. The random BS, the drunken monkey, you can call it, or it's like the train that's just constantly new thoughts are popping in our heads. We must begin to realize that we can witness this, be detached from them, and also begin to choose new ones and let the ones we don't need, we don't want to continue to grow in our metaphorical garden, which is our mind and our experience, and we can choose the ones that we want. But when we're having struggle with this, with these random thoughts that we have all day, Dr. Wayne Dyer is suggesting, and implying here that we make this communication with God a tool to rewire our subconscious programming using the law of autosuggestion to replace the random, craziness, terrible drunken monkey train of thoughts we have all day with a communication with God and that which we want to come in alignment to and bring into our lives. An harmonization with abundance, with, a feeling of contentment. Now, with this idea, we can use our trust to commune with God rather than being in a constant state of internal chatter, especially of a negative kind. Now, if this whole idea of God is just silly to you, I don't even know how you made it this far in the video, but you don't have to think about it as God. You can be like, okay, that's just a stupid religious idea. There's just kind of reality or like universe, whatever's doing all of this. I mean, we're not growing our hair and growing our fingernails and changing our skin cells, and we'd be terrible at all that, and we'd fail miserably. So there's something of some kind of crazy organized design that is doing nothing seemingly and yet leaving nothing undone. This is how it was described in the Tao Te Ching 2,500 years ago by Lao Tzu. But so, like, if God is just too religious or something for you, you don't have to think about it like that. Just make it nature, the nature of reality, which has its own laws and rules, which it does. And we're going through that on a different series in this channel, discovering the nature of reality through the ancient sage god, the Egyptian god Thoth, the god of wisdom. But overcoming our conditioning is the key here, and overcoming our subconscious, loops, patterns, automatic programming. So don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. This is just the program running. But now that we know, and we don't come from a position of self-blame, self-repudiation, but we come from a position of, okay, I'm here now. The past doesn't exist. And the future is whatever we make it. Remember, the wake doesn't drive the boat. The motor drives the boat. And the motor here now chooses where the boat goes. If we are the boat, then we can detach from the wakes that we've left behind us, which is our past. Most of us are living from the wakes. We're like, oh yeah, see those wakes? This is why the motor is screwed up and it can't go. We're confused, but it's not our faults. We've been told and taught this and convinced of these perspectives for some reason. That goes into a whole bunch of other topics, but we're here now in the boat using the motor. And we're going to go forward from a perspective with this new awareness that we can change the program and we can experience a very new life for ourselves. But it's going to take effort, practice, and diligence and persistence backed by a burning desire with a definite purpose. And with these keys, we can unlock the door to the secret of the mystery. This is getting poetic unexpectedly, but to that peace that surpasses all understanding. I really, the more that phrase pops up, randomly, it always has a different meaning for me each time. Sometimes it's contentment. Sometimes it's just like being on purpose. Not sure what that peace is. But this knowledge is the key to unlocking the door. Finding the door? Well, first we must find the key. And remember, this will go perfect. So often we think the door opens outwardly. And so we're pushing all the time, trying to get out of this metaphorical room. But when we discover that the door opens inwardly, and we stop looking outside of ourselves for what it is that we are so deeply searching for, and we begin to cultivate that garden and grow and create the ability within ourselves, we open the door inwardly, as when we can finally get out of that room. And so, replace thoughts about your experiences with the experience of this communication, this oneness, this prayer with the force, with God. Use this trust and communication with God to be the replacement for the constant state of mental chatter that we have. This doesn't mean you have to sit down and fold your hands and say, all right, God, because already we're like being separate there. So it's like, no, it's already going on. So it's just like while you're walking or washing the dishes, whatever you're doing, you're like, all right, God, here we are. What do you think? Just kind of start this weird conversation. It's like a friend. Not like you're going to like some almighty ruler and judge. No. No, this is like this is you. Really. I mean, this is your highest self. So how would you talk to yourself? I mean, you already do anyways, probably in terrible ways. So quit it. Quit talking to my friend so terribly. That friend is you. Replace thoughts about your experiences with the experience of prayer. For instance, praying in this sense can be a sentence such as, sacredness, guide me now. Or sacred love, flow through me now. Silently, we just say this to ourselves, silently recited instead of thinking thoughts. Prayer in this form is tilling. See, back to the garden. We're tilling the soil, tilling and clearing the inner self of the ego chatter that's constantly destroying us, telling us we're not good enough, we're you should work harder at this. Oh, but you are so lazy and you never. Who is that? I don't like that person. It's not me. Some part of a subconscious version of myself. But there's me and myself, and then the I. And then the eye of the I, or the one who watches all of this and wonders what the heck is going on the whole time, anyways. And it's attached, and it's like, haha, look at how happy, but look at how upset, and look at this whole myriad of experiences and the grandiosity of existence. But once again, when we're stuck in the ego mind, and that's all that dominates, because that's what we practice and get good at, it's all we're going to get. So, once again, using this power of communication, the mental nature, with our source, our force, that which is responsible for us and all that we see and experience. Sacredness, guide me now. I'll just say God, kind of just say God a few times, and I'll feel like a change of a thought process. I'll just be like, this is God. I am God. Like everything I am doing right now, even when I'm at work, like lifting totes and scanning things. And I keep this pops in my head because I've listened to this kind of content so much. It's just like, think the name of God. Ah, Atum, God, Brahman, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Viracocha, whatever, Ra. Ah, for me, is the sound of God. Because it seems to be, and this is something I got from Wayne Dyer, but it seems to be in all the names of creator gods, the sound. Ah. I believe that was in the beginning of this book. A practicing mystic will manifest quickly because he or she is plugged into the world behind his or her own eyes, rather than seeing the world as dictated by the eyes of the group and all of its forebearers. So when we can begin to unplug our circuits from these external forces, we will see the speed of our evolvement increase drastically. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, that you have the power within you to attract to yourself all that you desire. And so that is our mantra. And now coming to the end of this section of communication with God and prayer and trust. Sacred love, flow through me now. How may I serve is another good one. Like if we would all sit down before we do anything and ask a few times to that which we are a part of, how may I serve? Like what in the last few minutes of this video, God? How may I serve? Guide me to help me say the things that need to be said to help those that need the help that we are offering here. Now, with that meditation, that prayer, that offering, that communication with that which we are a part of, I will now finish this video in the next, hopefully, few minutes. It's been a fun one, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate each and every one of you so much. Replace thoughts about our experiences with the experience of this trusting in the wisdom that created us and that we are a part of. Saying, sacredness, guide me now. How may I serve? Sacred love, flow through me now. Praying in this form is tilling the soil and tending the garden of our minds and clearing the inner self of ego chatter, so that what you desire and what desires you can begin to grow and produce the fruit that we so greatly desire. Prayer in this form can really change our lives. My personal practice of prayer, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, is participating in a communion with God, wherein he says, I see God within me and I ask for the strength and the inner awareness to handle whatever confronts us. And he says, I know that I am. Remember, the I am is the most powerful. What you say that you are, you will be. As a man thinketh, so shall he be. As a man or woman thinketh, so shall we be. But participating in this communion with God, wherein we see God within ourselves and ask for the strength and the inner awareness to handle whatever confronts us. Dr. Wayne Dyer says, I know that I am not separate from this vital force that we call God, even though it is all names. So the name is not relevant because it is all names. I know that this force connects us, connects me, it connects you to everything in the universe, and that by placing our attention on what it is that we want to attract to ourselves, that we are really doing nothing more than aligning with and manifesting a new aspect of ourselves. Let me read this in his words. I know that this force connects me to everything in the universe, and that by placing my attention on what it is that I want to attract to myself, I am really doing nothing more than manifesting a new aspect of myself. This you should memorize. You should rewind as you watch this video again, or even as you're watching the live premiere now, because I'm pretty sure you can do that. Just rewind a little bit and keep this as a mantra. Memorize it, remind yourself, and repeat it daily, so that through the power of autosuggestion, you can influence your subconscious mind to create, through conscious effort, a new program. This new program will run on the software that you put into the hardware. And so this software program will be this. I know that this force connects me to everything in the universe, this force that we call God, and that by placing our attention on what we want and desire to attract to ourselves, we are really doing nothing more than aligning and manifesting a new aspect of ourselves. And finally, he says, I then let go of the results, most importantly, detached from the outcome, and let the universe, God, handle the details. I retreat in peace, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, and keep reminding ourselves that heaven on earth is a choice that we must make. He says, I keep reminding myself that heaven on earth is a choice that I must make, not a place I must find. It is my choice to live with the God force flowing unrestricted through me. It is the way of co-creating our lives at this moment. Trust, then, ladies and gentlemen, is the cornerstone of this communion, this mental connection, this praying with God. And when it comes to the peace that is the essence of manifesting, that is this trust that comes from this communication. Trust, then, is the cornerstone of my praying, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, and with it comes the peace that is the essence of manifesting. Next week, we'll go through the section entitled Peace, which is the result of trust. I remember the great lesson that infinite patience is met with immediate results because you're no longer waiting. You're patient, and it's just fine. So your result is there. The result of trust is peace, and it works the very same way. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a boom to communication with God and creating trust in yourself. We'll see what I title the video, but that was the thought for now. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that was fantastic. That was amazing. I always need these. So I do this somewhat selfishly because this is good. Like we said about the subconscious, you got to keep putting this stuff into your mind. Just pound it in there. And then it becomes secondary nature as a thought process. But if we just go around hoping and not pounding into ourselves this kind of wisdom, whether it be through constant podcasts, reading, research, spiritual, whatever, it's like we have to get it in there to where it sticks in there and we begin to live from that view and activate that new aspect of ourselves, which is already within us. It's there, it's possible. We just have to give it the right water and the right sunshine and the right cultivation and allow the seed to grow. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through greater awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves, psychology, spirituality, philosophy, so that through this increased awareness, we can increase the quality of our lives. And also remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. His story. His story? Keep in mind, though, that there is no way to happiness, as we just learned. You can go wherever, and wherever you go, there you will be. There's a great lesson Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about before we go. Reminding myself, finish the thing about happiness. There's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. It is where we create the ability within ourselves. And then, wherever we go, we will be there. Another way of thinking of this, great Wayne Dyer metaphor, is an orange juice. And if you take an orange, if you squeeze it, what comes out? Orange juice. If you squeeze it on Tuesday, if you squeeze it with a metal contraption, or if you smash it with a wooden thing, or if you squeeze it in the evening, or maybe on Saturday, or maybe during an eclipse, what comes out is very simple. It's what's inside. So this works the exact same way for human beings. No, don't get dark and gross just because it's Halloween season. We're talking about philosophical, spiritual ideas. So using a metaphorical analogy, if that's even correct, when you put stress and pressure on a person, when you squeeze them metaphorically, you confront them with struggle and frustration. What comes out is what's inside. So if we have inside of us this pessimism, this negativity, this frustration, that's what comes out, no matter where you are. So remember, if you have happiness, positivity, optimism, and you've cultivated these things through effort, diligence, practice within yourselves, when we've created the ability within ourselves to bring happiness to life, then all the things we've been telling ourselves so much, oh, when I get this house, or when I finally get there, or then I'll finally be happy. Then that all becomes irrelevant, because once we've created this ability within ourselves, then we are there. And hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate each and every one of you that spends time here with me on the channel, supports the work that we do. It's, you know, it means so much. It just amazes me, because time and attention are our most valuable assets. So with that said, expand the description below this video over here. There'll be a more info box, and you can expand that to get bigger, and you'll find a link, Amazon affiliate link to this book, so you can get it for yourself to put it on your shelf and follow along in the future. I make a few cents from those. I think I made like $2 in the entire lifetime of the channel. So if you'd like to support the work I do, check that out. If you'd like to support the work I do financially, check out my Patreon. You can like give me $1 every month or something. This is for you, though. A few cents isn't going to do anything. This is for you. And this is worth more than any number of cents if we can begin to practice and apply it in our lives. Priceless. Priceless, ladies and gentlemen. Also a link to my Etsy shop. I'm going to set up a new website soon. I've been putting it, that's why I didn't do a video last week. I've been putting in more efforts to grow my CLC paint, which is my mission or purpose of attempting to use my ability to create landscape paintings and offer them to others to inspire happiness. First of all, mission is through my art to inspire happiness and offer quality, original, textured on canvas, one-of-a-kind landscape paintings at affordable prices. I mean, you go to gift shops in the mountains and stuff, and it's like $700. I'm like, what? I could paint that in 3 hours. I'm going to offer this to somebody for $80, and we'll save them $620. So anyway, that's my purpose with CLC paint. I've been putting more thought and, definite purpose backed by a burning desire and persistence with organized planning. All of these things are secrets of reality that we need to begin to master. Also, give yourself the gift of health, ladies and gentlemen. C60 Purple Power is the ultimate antioxidant known to man. If you've never heard of it, look it up, please. Like, even just click out of the video and Google C60 health benefits. Or some, it's Nobel Prize winning. Nobody knows. I ask people, you ever heard about C60? Like, no. Like, that's weird. NASA's been using it for a long time. There must be something to it. I mean, the main purpose is developed to counteract the effects of radiation for people that were working on different kind of reactors. But we found it has much more benefits than just that, if that isn't a benefit enough alone. But all right, enough. Enough. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, enough of me rambling. Thank you so much once again. I'm going to leave it here. Remember, be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. Until next time, thank you. No, 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 no.